Awesome.
Here we are, live on air, June 10th. June 10th. Summer is moving along far too fast. Welcome everybody to Office Hours with John and Dave. We've got a wonderful guest in Cathy Paper that you can see on screen today. We're going to talk a little bit more about Cathy in a minute. And a little reminder for me is to turn my ringer off.
That's a good reminder for me too, John.
My cellular device. I already broke my own rules. And
those are guidelines. Those are
guidelines. Right. Episode 38 or 39. So we're cruising right along, helping fractional people get better at the whole world of being fractional. And super excited about today because one of the fractional takes many forms: ops, IT, finance, marketing. It's just, there's so many different things about it, but there are some recurring themes, and networking is one of them. And networking what was and networking as it needs to be is it's an industry and an entity unto itself. So super excited, Cathy, to have you here today to help my small brain get smarter about networking and what to do and how to do it right, and your feelings on it. Dave is a great networker, but even somebody of his caliber, I would give myself like a B- in networking. I give Dave like an A.
Yeah.
But even someone of his caliber can learn something. So
I'm going to need to know what your grading scale is,
It's completely random. Yeah, it's right? Like everything. It's completely random. And that's what makes it interesting and fun. So welcome, Cathy, to Office Hours, and we're super excited to have you today.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. And as you said, summer is flying by, and I like to hold on to every moment of it. So I guess my opening tip on networking is the new networking. I saw people just as I was driving back today, sitting outside, two people together right on their front steps, both with laptops up.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you they weren't coworkers, but they were people that were networking. Like, all our worlds have collided.
Yeah.
So that you can really do a lot more things. And networking is all about making some connections and growing relationships. So
yeah.
Even though we're on screen, I look forward to when we can go boating, or we can meet up at the Rocky Bottom.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's starting to come out. Well, get us grounded for a second, Cathy, for our audience and even for Dave and I. Ground us a little bit on who you are, what you do, the help you offer the world, and then we'll go into more details on the show. But get us grounded a little bit in the Cathy Paper world.
Sure. So I've been running my own business for the past 15 years. I was an executive coach at Best Buy. I was one of those people that walked around the hallway a lot, but my job was as an executive coach and process improvement. And when I started my own business, doing a lot of book marketing and training and coaching, one of the first things that happened to me, John, was I started going to all these events. Just how do I sell? How do I grow the business? How do I have employees? What do you do to grow your business? What are you making? Right. And I'll never forget the phone call from a friend of mine who has a great podcast, Stephanie Hansen Johnson. She's on FM 107, and she's a big foodie, and she does Makers in Minnesota. Anyway, she called me up and she said, Paper, she said, I was at this event the other night. You weren't there, and you're everywhere.
That's awesome.
But I stopped dead in my tracks, John, and I went, you know what? I'm exhausted. I don't have the right clients. My husband's mad at me because I'm out every night. I'm hustling like crazy, and I had really lost my focus. And through the years, what I've really started to do is to help people when they're doing, whether it's book marketing, where they want to promote their book, and we're going to get to your new book. So you can, if you want, you can sneak it up into the frame right now.
Get it there. Yeah, we'll get it.
Or you can wait a little bit. I started, when I left Best Buy, I called up Harvey McKay and said, hey, you're leaving money on the table. You could be doing more training. And as a new person in business, it took me a year to close him, to get the piece of business. Once I did, a lot of people want to work with somebody that's worked with somebody of his New York Times caliber.
Sure.
Anyway, and so then all of a sudden now I find myself doing a lot more networking coaching and networking training. And
well, that's important stuff. And it sounds to me like you had a cathartic networking moment that I think I know a lot of fractionals, not even just fractional pros, but business owners struggle with is where should you spend your time and where shouldn't you? You wore yourself out, which means you probably learned that you had to be more strategic. How did you kind of make that transition from wearing myself and networking everywhere to being really wise about it? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, the first thing I did, John, was I said, I got to get a process. So when we were joking, or maybe you hadn't pushed the record button yet about giving yourself a grade on networking, I am very intentional about what is your grade on networking and why are you networking? Because a survey of 500 people that I did, nobody likes the word networking. They cringe.
Sure.
It feels slimy, sleazy. They don't like it. And when you say build relationships, they're like, well, are we dating? I'm like, no, you're building business allies and partnerships. So first is to just get clear. Why are you networking? What's your purpose? And then I take people through sort of the steps of things of knowing what is your strategy? Who do you need to meet with? So the first thing I did, and I do with my clients, is I'm like, okay, where did your past business come from? If you don't have any business yet, we have a different conversation.
Sure.
But if you don't know where your past business came from, I want to look there because you can find a lot of things like, oh, I get my business from publishers or accountants or lawyers or other marketing vendors, or starting to get really clear of who are those referral partners. Again, being able to break it apart. So I got very mathematical. I'm not a math person. No, that's not true. I am kind of a math person. I'm competitive. Let's say that.
Sure.
So I wanted to be more efficient without feeling like I was superficial.
Sure. Did you create a process? Do you have a spreadsheet that we can send out after? You have a process, a book? This sounds like you sort of codified networking a little bit.
I did. So along the way, I met a lot of people that are phenomenal networkers, better than I. Steve Staup is somebody that, if you don't know him, great guy, works for a bank. He had an Excel spreadsheet and, knew who people were and helps a lot of people in transition. And when we went for lunch, I will never forget, he had printed out my LinkedIn ahead of time. And he had circled people that he thought I should meet with. Okay. So as a hustling small business owner, I was like, this guy's the greatest. I'm buying him lunch. I'm indebted to him. I've helped his kids with their own network. We have a really good relationship. But anyway, yes, I have a process. I have a spreadsheet, because what I believe in is you've got to have a ranking system. Sure. And you don't go run up to people and rank them and say, you're a 5 or you're a 1. Right?
That would be funny.
Yeah. But I can tell you, I know who some of my, 5 is good. Those are the people you would call up in the middle of the night and go, okay, I need 10 grand, or help me out, or, something's happened. The ones are maybe somebody you're just getting to know. And then to me, the 2 and 3s are the ones where you met them once, maybe twice, you've heard about them, but you're not really sure. And it's like, what are you doing? Yeah. And again, I do have a formula. And how much detail do you want me to go into?
No, you know what? As much as you want to, we'll post links to your website where people can go get more information and reach out to you more. We don't want you to give away any of your trade secrets.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I'll put that in chat for everybody, but go to rockpaperstar.com and check out Cathy's network. She's got a group. She's got all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. Talk about somebody that actually lives the life of a fractional exec. And as a media person, I mean, you're out there so much more. And I think the biggest thing, and the reason why I was so excited to have you on, Cathy, is most of the time when John or I are meeting with other members of the Voyager community, and those are all fractional executives with hanging out a shingle on their own, I don't know how to build my business. And I'm kind of afraid to meet with people because either I don't have time or that's just not my personality. And I know in other talks that we've done together, Cathy, that you've got a ton of just amazing tips to just get your butt out there and do it. And so that's what I'm super excited about. And yeah,
Yeah,
fire
but
away.
you know what I'll tell you though
Yeah.
is, the title of my book that's coming out in the fall, and I'm still tweaking the title because nobody likes the word networking, is it's networking on and off the screen. Because, 4 or 5 years ago, I realized I don't need to go to every single, I've been to the Met Ballroom, I'd go downtown, I'd go to the big events, I'd see all these other people out at the big events. And I'm like, hold on a minute. What if I went back and actually used the phone? What if I started writing articles? I write a column for the Business Journal. Like, what if I did some of those things that, did let me to have my butt a little bit in my chair, or even, I help a lot of introverts, you guys, with their network, because we all just think we have to be like rah salesperson to be a good networker. And really, you've got to just be real and be able to say, here's what it is that I do. Here's how I add value.
Yeah, we in the Voyager training, as those who are members listening know, is we made a process to it, and what we try to coach people, and I'd love you to add into this, is there's sort of, in the fractional world, right? There's some levers you can push on regularly with cadence, and you don't have to be a big personality. And it's not about being the biggest voice in the room and at all. It's far more about process. And there's 3 components to the process. One is networking.
Yep.
Another one is LinkedIn, the digital piece, right? You got to have some, and LinkedIn is a great place to be. And another one is email. And if you do those 3 things in roughly equal measure, you start to get the results that you want. What's interesting is I see a lot of people who will lean into one more than the other, and they get off balance. Yep. And man, it sounds like it's like nothing but networking, right? Like, oh my God, I'm out there all the time. I'm exhausted. I can't drink that much booze and eat that much, finger sandwiches.
Well, and I might say too, John, one of the things I do with people, and this was probably my background in the book marketing and helping kind of speakers and authors space, is I back up and say, let's get really clear who you are. What makes you a rock star? Because deep down, we're all really good at things, but somehow when we network, we turn into like that 8th grade version of ourselves that's trying too hard, instead of just being like, what? I'm really good at coaching. I'm really good at training. I mean, and you don't say really good because 1, this is Minnesota, and 2, you gotta talk about what I can do for the other person. But I get people to spend some time thinking, why am I networking? What makes me different from the 10,000 other consultants that are out there? Right. And how do you do that so that when you network with somebody, 1, you're memorable. So I'm super into sports. I talk a lot about the rugby ball.
Rugby.
Yep.
So because in rugby, it's about having a scrum. Who are those people around you? If you've ever watched it played, and you want other people around you that are talking you up. So what I started to realize, 5 years into my business, was I've got some really good allies. So like Dave, you and I met through office centers, through Lori Speaks, great community to meet a lot of people, good to get your feet grounded, to sort of calm things down. They answer all my phones, as a small business owner, they can be really helpful to making you feel bigger than you are. Right. And then all of a sudden I've got a network where if people would invite me to things, I would show up, because I'm like, you're in my scrum, you're in my inner circle that you refer business to me. Some people I make arrangements with, some people we just refer business. Right.
And yeah, the quality of what you do with your networking, I feel like people are getting wiser about it. I think people get kind of worn out. If you spread yourself so thin and you're going to every little thing you can, and I think that last part, Cathy, is a really major thing, and that is you turn into an 8th grade version of yourself.
Yeah.
I think imposter syndrome has a lot to do with that. I think the confidence that's needed. Honestly, I think we come into a hard economy, and confidence is kind of shaken a little bit.
For sure it is. And so what I do is I say to people, let's get really clear. Like, have you read again, and it's not to build your ego, it's to build your confidence of, have you read the testimonials of why your clients like you? Starting with that to then be able to say, have you talked to them lately? Because when I take my network and put numbers to it, I have a top 25 of people that I've either worked with them, they refer a lot of business, or they know me really well to know that, am I going to cross the line every once in a while? Yes, but they like that about me. So they're in my top 25. When you expand into that 100, which I call the All-Star 100, they may not know me as well, but I've gotten really clear of helping my clients talk about what makes you unique with them. Do you know how to ask for the business or listen for the opportunity is the other thing.
Sure. Talk about the distinction there, asking for the business and listening to the opportunity.
Well, to me, asking for the business is when like you have a client wrap up and all of a sudden you've realized you don't have the other lines in the water, right? That moment when everybody that's a fractional person thinks, oh my God, I'm going to get a job, right?
Yeah.
And then their spouse says, you're not getting a job, you're unemployable.
Yeah.
So that asking for the business is about being really strategic with someone where you can say, here's what I can do for you. I can design a new manager training program for you. Here's what it is. I sense you have a need. You've hired all these people. You're just a little bit more direct.
Yeah.
Because you're calling somebody up and saying, hey, can we have a conversation? So again, having your process, sometimes not having the process is what makes people wig out. It would be like going to Target without a list.
Yeah.
You spend way more than you want.
Oh my God. Yeah. Ridiculous.
Right?
Yeah. Total waste, asking for the business. So that's interesting.
And then if I were going to say, listen for the opportunity, I'm just back from a 3-day trade show. So if I'm a little tired, that's why. And it was all women-owned businesses and people wanting to, supplier diversity and huge companies to small companies like my own. And to me, listening for the opportunity was they had us at round tables, which, I hadn't done it before, but the suppliers talking, and I could hear them say places where they were stressed. And it's that hearing that little moment and then going, with a past client like Polaris, we developed this type of a program to work on retention. And to me, that was listening for the opportunity. I had no idea what these people needed, but right there, I was like, okay, I know what it is that I do. I know what do we deliver. I know how to do that. So I call that the listening for the opportunity.
Well, that's super wise advice, because I think a lot of people do get the counsel to be sure you ask for the business. But if that's you, if you're listening, and if that's you, really think about that a little bit. Think about how you're going to ask for the business, what that means. Because the answer isn't, hey, this has been a great meeting. Can I have your business? You'll never get it. But if you spend time sort of write down, how am I going to ask for the business? Then you'll have a better chance of making those sparks connect. I have seen so many people say, you just have to ask for the business, which is good advice, but also bad, because how?
I think it's hard, if I think, you said, okay, networking, LinkedIn and email.
Yeah.
Think about in the emails, do you put in like an offer for somebody to get to know you? Or do you in your email put in an example of a case study? So often we forget to talk about like the things that we've done well, because you're like, oh, that's no big deal. That was 3 years ago. Well, if you did a project with 3M designing training, you might want to talk about that.
Right. Yeah.
Or again, I have one client who we're working with, again, a tune up on their network. And, business has been tough for all of us in the past couple of years. It's weird, right?
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so let's go back 2 years and let's make a list of the clients you've done business with. And then now I want to go back and I want to look at your calendar for the last 2 weeks. And then the 2 weeks forward, who are you meeting with? And I want numbers. And so of course, right away, people feel like I've just, asked them to undress. And I'm like, I just want to talk about this, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about what you're doing to stay connected with. And sure enough, there's a big opportunity, having a lunch conversation with someone where they don't really want to ask for more business. And I'm listening to this and thinking, I totally understand why it happens,
Yeah.
but how can I get them to say, this is someone in your impact, your all-star 100 list. You're having lunch with them. They like working with you. Are you sure you don't want to be able to steer that conversation to, did you know we also do this? Could we do more work together?
Yeah.
So
Simple,
again,
right?
breaking apart that asking for the business,
Yeah.
because I think we've all lost our kind of that intuitive sense.
Right.
Sure.
Well, and
Yeah.
especially person to person, or in person, because I don't know about you, Cathy, I was at a show this week as well, and it's so much weirder now because you're like, okay, well, should we be wearing a mask or not or whatever, but then also, we're just out of practice on how to interact
Yes.
with real humans, and people tend to, or at least what I was noticing when I was meeting with folks this week, they tend to either not talk about themselves at all or go straight for the jugular and
Right.
almost oversell,
It's
right? So
true.
Yeah.
there's a difference between presenting how you might be able to help someone in an engaging and conversational way, and, oh my God, can you buy my crap? It's,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it's kind of an art. And what I'd like to do now, if that's cool, Cathy and John, is turn on the folks that are dialed in. For anyone that's watching on Facebook, if you join the link that I posted in the Facebook Live, you can actually join and chat with us live as well. But this is supposed to be a call-in show to ask the experts. I know that the folks that we've got on here are probably going to have questions for you. So everyone that's on, I'm going to allow you to talk now. And so you can either chat if you don't want to talk, or go ahead and just ask Cathy, the networking guru, questions. So here we go.
Great.
Oh, look at that. All of a sudden, look at all this.
Perfect. And
All
I see
right.
stairs on. That's
Welcome,
so cool.
everybody.
It's been forever.
This is awesome.
since
This is
we
like
talked about
Barstool
this.
Sports or something fun.
Right? Right. So for everybody else, how are you guys networking, and how are you getting out there? And are there unique challenges that you're facing?
While we're waiting for hands to come up, Dave, is our Facebook audience dialed in as well?
They are. I'm not
Okay.
seeing any interaction or comments on it.
Okay.
But again, this is one of those things that we're brand new on. So I wanted to make sure that if someone
We're fresh and green, bringing, we've
And
got,
you know
we've
what? And
got,
that's part of the networking is like, I'm
Yeah.
tripping around some of these new
Mhm.
technologies in a good
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
because we get permission to learn and we're all
yeah,
learning together.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, this much we know.
Oh,
Because
Sarah's raised her hand. Hey, Sarah.
We know Zoom, and Sayre has a question.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you both, Dave and John. Happy to meet you, Cathy. I am finding a lot of individuals who are either too busy, unfocused, totally confused. So when you're listening for the opening, I'm not, that's pretty easy for me to find, but
Yeah.
I can't find people focused enough and committed enough to move forward. There seems to be this great pent up tension in the world of we can't do anything because nothing's certain, but if you don't move forward, it doesn't really matter.
It's weird. It's so
It is.
true.
Yeah. So any suggestions would be helpful. Good suggestions preferred, but anything.
Yeah.
So it's a really good question, Sarah. And I think, people are unfocused, and when you're networking with someone or building a relationship with them, there's that fine line to sort of being the listener and moving the conversation to a proposal, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've found successful or seen a lot of my clients do is to build in an assessment tool or some way, something, if you've ever shopped at Costco or a grocery store, there's a reason they give out samples, right? And so if there were a way to have somebody that's unfocused to be able to start asking a few questions to say, oh, we have this strategic planning assessment, and I don't know your business well enough, but to start with, we have this assessment we could start with, and then that might get shed some clarity on what are the priorities for the next 3 months.
Mhm.
Sure. And I'm guessing start out with a free assessment and then take it up to a a small price point, and then take it up to a larger price point.
You know
I'm
what? I
guessing.
don't love free. I don't love free. I'll be honest.
Bless you.
Yeah, I don't think it's needed, to be honest with you, and particularly with our population of fractional pros. You know, we've got such wisdom, such experience. You know, our ability to help is you know, it's in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars of value that we can provide
Right.
at this level. So free is probably not needed. But boy, Sarah, you really struck a chord. I think from what I hear is that finding people are too busy. Mixed with, it's a terrible mix right now with them also lacking focus.
Right.
And I gotta feel that's because too busy is kind of, that happens. Too busy plus lack of focus it's a bad stew. And I feel like that's got to be a symptom of the pandemic.
But I also wonder too, and you know, the assessment's one idea. Another thing is to give people choices, so that somewhere in there you're showing up and saying, you know, here are two choices or two routes we could take them. So I took a great sales class from Ursula Menches, who's got, you know, One Great Goal is her book, and she's in town in the Twin Cities here. And it was about going in with a proposal, you know, to the conversation. So you've already kind of hunched a little bit, you know, what you think they want. That for me, with somebody that's unfocused, I will encourage people to say, why don't you try two offerings with them? Because
I really like
Brilliant.
that. I really like that, and I'll tell you why, because it will appeal to others who are selling something new. What I am selling is really a future focused perspective, reframing what's going on, doing something outside of the box, doing systemic change and systemic problem solving rather than rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. We can't build future-based businesses on yesterday's go-to-market strategy. So that going in with that proposal and choices is key for people selling to the new, because it's like a no-brainer. You know, I could continue getting headaches, or I could take aspirin. You know, what's the choice?
I also admit, somebody that's unfocused, you know, and I'll never forget my you know, accountant, when I tried to first explain my business, she just put her head down on the table and was like, what are you doing? You know, like you have too many areas, and like, you know, this is just a little visual. I'm a big fan of like, make visuals so that when you're talking to the person, you can say, and here's where I can do this project, or where I've done this, or anything that feels concrete. I think otherwise you just have a nice cup of coffee and you walk away and go, well, I didn't get any business, and my network hasn't moved any further, and was that a good use of my time? So I rank every meeting afterwards. I tell people to do that so that you can really say, is this someone that's going to be in your network long term? Because we only have so much time.
Right.
That's a good point. Is you know, ranking your meetings is important. I think that when I can't remember which of my many sales coaches and people who I've borrowed some brain power from told me this, but it really stuck. And that is, in sales, empathy is one of the greatest things, one of the greatest assets that you can have. Is empathy for the people on the other side of the table. So when it's hard to think this way, but when you think about, okay, they're really unfocused, that's a struggle, right? To be empathetic means, man, I kind of, those aren't great shoes to be in right now. What can you do for people that are unfocused? And of course, what you can do is you can give them simple things to work from. I think to go there with a proposal, you all know me by now, snack size, 1 page, short, sweet, keep it small, focus, but don't go in saying, I'll get a proposal to you later. You know, be transactional in the moment. It's doing the other side a tremendous favor when you do that.
And I'd also add to it, John, you know what? And Sarah asked this question too. Are you meeting with the right person? Because I found myself in a lot of cases having meetings not with the right person. And you know, I have a robust network, but I have gotten very clear of, am I meeting with the decision maker, or am I meeting with an influencer? Those are different conversations when you're selling in a larger project. And
all good points. I think the stuckness, the lack of focus is a symptom of everything else.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Right.
you know, and easy to have empathy for that. And I don't mean to monopolize here, but
This is great.
Cathy, could you speak to stickiness? How do you make what you've just provided sticky so that you can get back through a conversation or an email and start it out with something other than I'm just checking in? Like,
Yeah, that's
who
the
the hell-
worst, isn't it?
yeah,
Just
who the hell
checking in.
cares?
Ah, I know. Who wants to be checked in on?
You
Yeah.
mean stickiness so that you can land the business?
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I don't know if people even understand if they are the right person to talk to or not right now. It's so messy.
Mhm.
They might say, yeah, I can make that decision.
Right.
Well, you get to the decision point and it's like, hell no, you can't make that decision. There's 17 people involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of coaching on for young people on the interview process. And I find it's pretty compartmentalized to say, could you tell me about the process? Or can you tell me about your timing? Or I think to make stickiness might be to say, do you have questions beside I'm just checking in? Do you have questions so that you can understand where they're at in their decision making?
Mhm.
Are you, do you have budget? Are you ready? Am I understanding your
Mhm.
question correctly? Okay.
Yes.
Because I would then ask questions about, where are you at in the budgeting process? So like, again, these suppliers at this conference, they knew exactly what they were buying for by which quarter, but for professional services, it was a little bit vague. So I would ask them the question, have you ever hired for leadership development and coaching in the past? Can I get on one of your lists of executive coaches?
Mhm.
Do you have, when is your budget cycle for this? Or do you do this only with new hires? So any questions you can ask I would swap out sticky for how can I learn more?
Yeah.
To put, again, push the rugby ball forward. I want you to score that piece of business. So how can you do that? Is there anything else you need? One question I always ask my clients, and I think it's why I have so many longer term relationships, is there anyone else I could connect you with? Is there anything else you need? Because then you've got the trusted relationship and they're saying, you know what, I need a really good web provider, or, do you know somebody that would be a talent sourcer for us, or anything? Again, I don't know your business well enough, but any way I could be an asset to them.
Which is huge. And I'm gonna piggyback on that.
Yeah.
So one thing that we coach specifically in Voyager is make 5 new LinkedIn connections a week. Just be in that habit, right? Make them good ones and come from it from the perspective of help and be helped, and in that order. Here's why we say that. I think the feeling is those 5 connections are either going to be a client or somebody who can really refer me to a client. While that may be true, you are also building your arsenal of people so that when moments like that come up, hey, Cathy, we don't have any business to do right now, but I could really I really need, in this case, I'll think about Brian here. I need a food marketing guy. Do you have somebody, right? So when Brian, I'm just picking on you because I know that's your practice. You're building your people around you. And the reason that's so important in the new normal is we're not going back to offices full of thousands of people where our whole network is built in. It's different now. And so some of it is to get clients. Some of it is to get referrals. A lot of it is stuff to get the people around you that you can offer as help to others. So if that frees anybody up on the idea that what does networking do, that's part of it. That's a very, very big part of it, is building an arsenal around.
So let me ask you a question, John, on the 5 new people a week, because I don't know if I do that.
Yeah.
And I like that discipline of it.
Yeah.
Do you help people sort out like who those 5 new ones are by like, whether it's job title or industry or what they're looking for? Do you encourage people to do some thinking?
We do,
that
yeah.
way?
So in the coursework, we've got some general guidelines on there. Quite honestly, LinkedIn does a pretty decent job with their suggestions. They're pretty good. But the idea is, if you just if all you do is take LinkedIn suggestions, they're going to say, here's people who are in your industry. Here's people who you went to college with. Here's people in your market. Quite honestly, if you're just getting started, good enough, right? Because if the difference is between not making 5 new connections and making 5 new connections, that changes.
Yeah.
The part where the connections get better is when you start to actively be out there, right? When you're doing 3 or 4 posts a week in your social channel, and if LinkedIn should be yours, is people start seeing what you're talking about. They start getting interested in the stuff that you're interested in, and they start reacting to it. Hey, I like that. I shared it. Go to the reactions, and that's a great place to make friends.
Right. John and Cathy, can we back up just a second? Because I think there's something that, I don't know if we've talked about it enough, but I get this sense quite a bit with fractionals in particular, that a big thing that they struggle with is, where do I even start with my network? And we kind of tease about that.
For sure.
So one of the things that I work through with my customers when I'm starting out on a brand new marketing engagement is, okay, let's focus on what you do, and more importantly, what problem that solves for your customer. Because then you can start looking at it and figuring out, okay, well, who are these people that have these problems? And that's the people that you're targeting and that you're looking for on LinkedIn. It's not just anybody. You're not just hitting up your local neighborhood community. You're looking for the kinds of people with the roles that would be hiring for you or buying your product or service. So, it's pretty easy if I'm a realtor, right? I'm looking for people that want to buy a house. But if I'm a business service person, you're looking not just for the kinds of companies that you can serve, but the people that make that decision or that influence that decision in that market. So I guess the question for Cathy and for John is, how would you begin the process of narrowing that down and then looking for those people?
The easy answer for me, it's literally part of why Voyager exists, is micro communities. When you're in a community like Voyager is and others like it, which is nothing but people who help people make smart business decisions. Those are great communities to be part of. It might be nice to be part of other communities that are whatever, if I don't know, whatever it is, right? A fishing community or some other sort of interest, but get into communities where people either make or influence a decision. It can be, it's sort of, communities like Voyager are easier, right? Because we're all here to help each other. We're in the innovative side of the market. The tougher ones are sort of the verticals like Central Minnesota manufacturing or those industries. There's there's kind of a guard there. Like if you go up there and if you're a supplier, there's still some things that you'll have to overcome. So the short answer for me is communities, micro communities are a big part of that.
Yeah.
Cathy.
I might say do 2 or 3.
Yep.
So that you get really clear with your time of how much time am I going to spend on networking? What's my target? So first, I always say to people, start making your list. In that Excel spreadsheet with your names. And if you only have 12 names on there, that's fine. But then I want to go back through your career and be like, okay, let's think about those people. And you mentioned, where did you go to school? Where are you from? Affinity groups. And then I like the term micro community. I also think being part of a, really being thoughtful of who else talks to your client.
Totally.
Who else does your client deal with? So maybe, I got involved with the Carlson School of Business because that's where a lot of, professionals grow, or now I'm, connected into the Society of Human Resource Management, because that's where a lot of HR professionals go, or, trying to get some traction. But I always throw in a hobby. So again, it's summer, and I have a client who they were in the asset management business. And I said, they're like, I shouldn't golf so much. I should be networking. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What I know about golf is it's all about building your network. Are you strategically connecting people to each other? So sometimes building a network is saying, I'm going to be the captain.
Yeah.
So like every quarter I'll hold a lunch where I'm pulling people together that I'm like, these people should all know each other. And, why are they not? And then you get that comfort and kind of street credibility of being the networker.
I'm writing that down in the chat because that's really helpful. Is micro communities. It would be kind of boring, right, if they were all business communities. And I think you're leaving things on the ground.
Right.
If you
I think it's I joke about that your 8th grade self shows up, but think about it. When you're already in high school and you kind of got your activity group, whether it's band or sports or the newspaper, you're a little bit more confident and you found your people. So why not take one of your hobbies? If you're into the orchestra, join the orchestra and go to something, or invite somebody that you think might be into the orchestra, invite them to go to that with you, because then you build a different kind of relationship.
Right. And that kind of softens up the relationship, and it lets you be more you, and it lets you practice, because even if you're having a business conversation, you still need to be a real human. Right. So if you're talking and, for example, if Sarah's sitting down with someone and she goes right for the jugular, of course, they're going to back off and they're going to, kind of disengage. So you need to build a rapport with people and start engaging with them. Like, what do you do for fun? How do you hang out? How are the kids? How's the weather? Whatever that is. And then build that.
I also, Dave, with networking, and I've gotten really good at helping people write their scripts, because it's not that you use a script, but there's comfort in knowing when might I say to somebody, what else would it take for us to work together? Or having the language that moves that conversation forward, into what it is you want that networking relationship to turn into.
Right.
You work very hard to get into conversations.
Yeah.
Don't leave out the part of how much you have to prepare for and get good at when you're in the conversation.
Yes.
It looks like Sarah has another hand raised. So Sarah, please.
I just wanted to offer that one of the phrases that I use in the work that I provide is to share that 2 monologues don't make a dialogue. and that's what you're really looking for, I think, is that dialogue. And I like the idea of your script, Cathy, because I always try to prepare for meetings thinking not from the perspective of just what I want to say, but thinking as a conversation. So if I said this and I got this response, that's great. And this would be a non-starter response. And this would be, oh my God, there's a brick wall ahead of me. How do I redirect? So if that's helpful to people.
100%.
2 dialogues do not make 2 monologues. Do not make a dialogue. That's
love that.
Brilliant.
One of the things that I'd like to keep coming back to is that you really need to know who you're talking to. And so, building a persona or an idealized version of your best client can be very helpful. I did put a link into a potential resource. It's called makemypersona.com. You just go to that website. They don't ask you any information or any details, but you just build out who your ideal customer is. And it asks you all kinds of probing questions on, like, what kind of hobbies do they have? Where are they? What's their job role and all that stuff. And if you can build helpful questions and a script around what engages those people, that'll get you halfway there. And I think having the script and having, a good overview on who you're trying to reach really sets you up as, it helps you be more relaxed in the conversation because you understand, because you've done your homework. If you're having a one-on-one networking meeting with a person and you haven't looked at their network or their LinkedIn profile, shame on you. You need to know what school they went to. You need to know where they're from. Ideally, you need to know if they have kids or whatever, so that you have something to talk to. So building this up is incredibly important, and it makes it so much easier to just have a real human conversation.
You put a link in there, Dave?
I did. It's makemypersona.com. It's in the
And
chat.
Dave, you know what I do is I have a wish list of these are clients I would like to work with, like company wise, so that then when I hear somebody say the name of them, I can say, wait, you know somebody there?
Yeah.
Because a lot of my, almost all my business comes from referral, a friend of a friend. So I have a lot of friends, right? Or people that I have business relationships with. And I actually, LinkedIn is a great place to find out how many shared connections do we have. And I'll call the person that I know the closest, that's in my inner circle. I'll call them and say, hey, what do you know about this person? Do you think they would ever want to do business with me? How do I approach them? What do I do to do that? Could I get them into one of our groups? What are we doing? So I do a lot of, I call it setting the table before I've even gotten that time with the person.
That's one thing I was going to ask, and we're going to let Brian has a question here, but 1 second before we do that, Brian, Cathy, I think you answered that. Dave, if you could speak to a little bit. Conversations are more rare, obviously. You have less lunches than you do with other things. Do either of, Cathy, I think I just heard a good answer is like, in the digital world and in the new world, when we're more digital, right? This show is an example. Any advice or counsel for fractionals, knowing that conversations are more rare, how to have as much quality when you're in a digital state?
What I like to do is set out the equivalent of a digital buffet, so that I can have people say, so I know my persona and I know what they're interested in. So I just scatter out a bunch of helpful, informative, interesting, engaging articles or topics or social posts that are designed to get people to nibble. And then after they nibble, I get them, they're in my CRM, and then I can automate the process of giving them more of what they're interested in based on what they're telling me. Right. So having that digital buffet is one way to do that. But then also to just never forget that you do need to provide value to people on an ongoing basis. And it doesn't have to be one-to-one. You can do it one-to-many over these social networks. And that's really what social media in growing your business should be about. It's not, hey, buy me, hey, me. It's, here's a problem that I've seen solved, and here's some ideas to solve it. Right. It's that little bits of nutrition to help you get through the day.
That is easy, but also hard for people to get their arms around. But
I like that term digital buffet, but I also think there's something about finding a way to build a connection.
For sure.
Somehow for me, I'm not I like social media, but it's not, I'd rather meet everybody face to face, right? That's my first choice. But on social media, I see myself using the DM feature more, whether it's on Instagram or on LinkedIn, making more conversations there. Again, as a fractional person, you're dealing with higher level people that may not be on LinkedIn as much as we're on it when we're looking for work. But 17 minutes was the stat that I just learned that people are on LinkedIn every day now. So people are there.
They're there.
Right.
It's I call that a digital watering hole.
Yeah. But so again, figuring out where can you find those touch points to start building the connections.
And I would say, whichever you do, go deep into one. If you spread yourself across LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, 3 or 4 more, you'll probably get really, really frustrated. Get really good at one before you branch out. Mr. Newmanville, good to hear your voice again, or about to hear your voice. You've got a question for us and Cathy, and lay it on us.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of a question comment, but I mean, I like a lot of what you're saying there, Cathy, and you expounded upon it too, Dave, with the whole, how do you really understand the persona / the people that you're talking to? I found it to be, super critical to really research Are they in articles? What have they written? Where are they saying out in in social networks? What areas are they interested in? But also sometimes taking that a step further, when it's a common contact, maybe you talk to a couple of common contacts and try to develop a little more insight around the person you're going to meet with. And then even one step beyond that is sometimes I'll even survey a few people on common issues or areas of focus that are affecting, that person's career field or their company or both. So as a researcher, that side of me anyways, I always kind of go to that as one of my techniques to understand what the issues are. So I think, I'm guessing that you find, you talked about doing a survey there about networking and gathering that information. People don't like that term. Is that something you commonly do, is that type of an assessment?
Yeah, we did that. That was an annual survey. So I do that, but I liked what you said about you research so that you can add some value, Brian, so that you can say, here's 3 trends in your industry, like anything to make the person you're trying to do business with smarter or more successful. You're going to, that relationship's going to blossom based off that.
Sure.
Right.
Because
exactly. And that's so true. And I spend about half my time in the food industry. And so, just yesterday we released, or 2 days ago, a national study on kind of inflation and how people are dealing with that, shoppers at the grocery store and things. So naturally that lends itself to many different and interesting conversations, just because that's valuable information that somebody wants to know more about. Right.
Right. And again, and for you, if that's information, something that you can then post on LinkedIn and tag 3 or 4 people so that they take a look at it, that people also are drawn to like that pockets of energy,
totally.
And I think that's something with networking that we forget to do, because, it's changed so much in the last few years. But if there's any way you can, and it always feels weird, the first couple of times I've done it, I don't like tagging a whole bunch of other people. I feel like I'm shouting. I feel like I'm intruding on their feed.
It gets a little spammy, doesn't it? Yeah.
It feels really spammy.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to even calling people to say, hey, do you want to go in with me on this article? So like I'm co-writing something for Twin Cities Startup Week with another consultant, because then we can both generate momentum. So there's just some different ways to show what a good, a good professional.
Yeah, I think those kind of tactics are good. I mean, it always comes down to intent. If your intent is, I'm going to flag some people because I respect their opinion on this, and I'm calling,
you want to draw them into the conversation. Yeah.
Right. The intent is good. If I flag people because I want their business without talking to them in the first place, probably not a good thing to flag.
Correct.
Probably not a good thing to flag.
Well,
Ryan, when you do
sharing information, I mean, you're just like, I posted a story today because every day John knows this, I post a story in the food industry, right? And today there was an acquisition that was announced between 2 retailers. Well, I put in a quote from one of the CEOs. I tagged the CEO. I've never met this CEO before. Don't do business with him, but he actually liked the post. And then all of a sudden that started a whole dynamic of a million other people liking the post.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it to do anything outside of share that information about what's going on in the industry. That's my intent.
Yep.
But if something came out of that, great, but that's just,
that's generous.
But
that's a generous thing to do.
Good for you. Good for you, because I always say to people, I'm like, nobody ever sits in the front row.
Yeah. And
it was one of the lessons Harvey McKay taught me. He goes, always sit in the front row. The front row is where the sponsors sit. The front row is where the speakers sit. The front row is where the people that really want to get things done sit. I'm like, I always sit in the front row. And you know what? Doing something like that is like, that's going right up to the front row.
Yeah. It's totally generous. It really is. As a former CEO, it can be very lonely. The CEO's all busy, and we don't have a lot of time and everything. But when somebody in our industry has a slight recognition or just does something nice for us, it's kind of appreciated. I think that's a very generous thing to do, Brian, and I think everybody else listening should give it a shot. It's not offensive. If it's spammy, then it's wrong. But it's like, you know what? I respect your opinion. I respect your business, and I'm going to flag you on it.
I call people, you know what, John, I call people to find out. I'm like, was that a spammy post? So
Sure.
usually when I tag
Wonderful.
them, sometimes I just go right in to be like,
Yeah.
hey, was that too much? No, that was fine. It's you, you're
Mhm.
okay. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know. So anytime I have that little voice of, have I just turned into some caricature? I'll call people to be like, how was that?
You bet.
Mhm.
You bet.
So my
There's a
TikTok
recurring.
is a little coming unglued. My kids tell me that. but
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff is okay.
There's a recurring theme to this episode as it comes to networking that I hope everybody can take away as we kind of come here to the back end. And that is quality seems to do better over quantity. Because what we've been talking about is spend a little bit more time with fewer people in a more meaningful way, rather than spray and pray and blanket the universe with unthought out intent. So by that meaning, find out more about the people you want to talk to, engage with those people on a deeper level, try again there. You can do that, and Brian had just did a good example of that. You can do that. What might suffer, of course, is the 30 other people you want to talk to that you may not get to it. But I would say, as a strategy guy, as a fractional CMO strategy guy, deeper, more meaningful stuff has a higher yield.
Yeah.
Has a much higher yield. So I think that's a big takeaway of today's meeting. Speaking of that, we're at the top of the hour. And for our listeners, thank you so much for joining. Cathy Paper has been our guest. If you're listening, if you're on the treadmill, and we've got Cathy Paper at Cathy, what's your URL again?
Yeah, rockpaperstar.com. But John, though, we didn't get to talk about your book. You got to hold up that book for me, because I'll send you the PDF on book marketing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just fresh off the presses of I don't know if it's showing here, is Consult Your Way to a Full-Time Job. Fresh off the Voyager U presses. It's a book about doing this fractional stuff as a means to get a full-time job.
Mhm.
And so it's nice, and you can see by looking at the spine, it's nice and thin. Everything I do is always snack size by intent, because people have less and less time.
Where can I buy it, John, or how can we all support you at book launch? Because if I've learned anything about networking from authors, you have to support one another.
Oh, God bless you. So we're on Amazon.com under Consult Your Way to a Full-Time Job. So we are currently at Amazon Books, and you can find the link to it there. Thank you.
Great. Before we go, I do want to give a quick shout out for the next week. We are meeting with Melissa Johnston at Entrabank, and a brand new bank that they just started up. And she's going to be talking about how to apply for financing and get funding for your business. So
nice.
It'll be super exciting. And I know Melissa well, and she's another rock star.
Yeah.
And Cathy, thank you so much. Hit Cathy up at Cathy@rockpaperstar.com. And it's been amazing. Thank you for hanging out.
Wonderful guest. Thank you, Cathy. All right. You'll find her link on the thing, and we're closing the show, right, Dave?
We sure are. Thanks all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend as always.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, all.
Yeah.
Bye.